Darcy wins just outside Toronto, more than 20 inches. So, I mean, I'm really glad in a way that we can all get together today. We're going to talk anything that has to do with motivation, and we're going to ask that you use the Q&A box and not the chat box to put your questions. As soon as you have a question, even if you have one right now, start putting it in that Q&A box. And we're going to use the Q&A box because it really allows us to keep track of things. So, um, even though we have the chat, we want to use that Q&A box for our questions. That way we don't miss anybody. That way too we can see, hey, do we have some that are kind of like overlapping? So as soon as you have a question, um, we want to hear from you. So anything that would have to do with motivation, maybe your favorite learner is dealing with issues that would have to do with like, oh, being unable to do their homework. Maybe you're noticing that when things get really busy in terms of extracurriculars, that motivation for academics is kind of flagging. you know those would be the kinds of things that we would love to hear from you. So anything that would have to do with, again, motivation, that's going to be a great way for us to have this conversation. And I'm already seeing some stuff in the chat here. Oh, geez Louise, these are great. Okay, so I'm just gonna start at the top here. So, how do you keep your kids off of games while they are doing homework on the computer? Um, this is one that I personally struggle with as a person who loves video games, as a person who loves anything to do with like fun, creativity. Video games are really great for helping us decompress and de-stress, but my goodness, they are not good when it comes to time management because any game that you play, you may not be able to just pick it up and put it down, you know? So one of the things that is a big overlap with our world and with our students is that our video games, like when I was a girl, my video game system, my Nintendo was plugged into my TV. And then when I got to be a little bit older, I was lucky enough to have parents who got me a Game Boy. So, it was this physical thing that was a video game system only. Well, now our computers where we do our schoolwork are also our video game systems. And it makes it so hard because as soon as you turn on the computer, and I know this from my own life, the first thing I want to click on is my Steam icon. And if you're not aware, Steam is a video gaming platform. It's where you can buy all of the hot video games and they come right to your computer, no need for a cartridge. And so one of the things that happens is, okay, the kid says, I'm going to sit down at the computer, I'm going to do my work, but you know what? I'm just going to take 10 minutes and I am going to play a little bit of my game and then I'll do my work. One of the first ways I think that is a really good way to have the conversation is to talk to kids about the expectation of how long you're going to spend on the game versus the reality of how long you're going to spend on the game. Because when you're playing something that you're really enjoying and you're getting that great stress relief, you're solving puzzles, you're experiencing a story like in so many of our favorite games out there, the time just slips by. It'll feel like, well, I've only done like 10 minutes of play because maybe I did one mission in a story or I killed one like bad guy. And then you look at the clock and it's like, oh my God, it's been a half hour. That time blindness is partly because as you're doing something that you really enjoy and that you love, you get into that flow state. That's one of the reasons I personally love games. I get into a flow state. I'm not really thinking about the stressors of the day. I'm thinking about my little characters and my little story and everything. But for kids, it's really hard for them to understand the amount of time that they're devoting to something. So, a good conversation starter to talk to kids about like productive gaming is to figure out, okay, how much time do you want to play versus how much time did you play? So this is something that I use myself. This is something that I use with my students when I have a kid who's a gamer. I will talk to them about making sure that they have the time that they actually want to play with no additional stressors. The way that you have no additional stressors is you get your homework done. Otherwise, you've played and then you go into a cycle of, oh my God, now I have to do all this homework and I have so little time to do it. Oh my God. And I have kids that they'll tell me about feeling very down on themselves, feeling very guilty, feeling very bad. Like it takes the fun of the hobby or the activity and it turns it into this like evil, weird thing. So I talk to kids about flip-flopping. Like, look, if you get all the homework done, I really think that it's a nice thing to reward yourself with playing a game. That is a beautiful thing to do. And in conversation with your favorite student, you can talk about, okay, you thought you were only going to spend a half hour playing this game, but look, you spent an hour. Let's see how long it takes you to do your math problem set, to do your, history vocab words, and then use those actual time realities to come up with a good schedule at night. Most of my students will find that their homework doesn't take as much time as they think it's going to take. When they start to work on it first, they then have time where they can have that stress relief and have that fun activity with their favorite game after the homework is done. And a really motivating factor, the thing that gets the kids to buy in, is that thing about, okay, um I don't feel that guilt anymore. Like when I get my homework done beforehand and then I play my game, I'm just having fun. I'm not stressed out. So that's something that in my experience has really worked. I think that it's nice for kids to have hobbies. I think that video games are very productive. They really get you thinking, they get you problem solving. There's tons of reading that are involved in them. So I think that using them as a reward and not as something that we demonize can be really, really effective. We got a ton of questions. Okay, so I'm just gonna go down these. So the next one says, my child is in high school and is very effective academically in the school setting, but but has executive dysfunction mania at home. Okay, this is one that's really common too. So you think about the school day. The school day has all of your different class periods. 45 minutes you're in English, 45 minutes you are in math class. So things are very regimented. You know what you should do every part of the day. And I have a lot of students that they have great executive function in school. They are using their class time, they are using their like study hall time, but then when it comes to being at home, well, that is not the place where you work. And so one of the ways that I actually talk about this with parents is, how productive are you when you leave your office? So some folks, like I'm a person that I'm in that room right now. I have a room in my house where I am very productive. This is the room where the work gets done. Outside of this room is all games and fun. I have a small dog. I have a gaming PC. I have a Nintendo Switch. I have an exercise room. There is nothing but merriment happening in the rest of my house. So sometimes it can be solved by having a place that is very focused on work. So we're taking some of that routine from the school day and now we're putting it in place at home. So it could be, and it doesn't have to be a separate room. It can be a quiet area, like the kitchen table can turn into a good place to do work. And there is an effective strategy that you can use, and it's called body doubling. Sometimes students and I use this in our sessions. So body doubling is when two people are working concurrently but not together. So here's how this can work in your house. So let's say it's that executive dysfunction mania at home that our attendee so beautifully, I really love that phrasing, whoever wrote that. That's awesome. You can have a task that you will do and a task that the student will do. So, for example, maybe at night you have to read through all of your emails to get ready for your meetings the next day. And maybe that is going to take you 45 minutes. And your favorite student has, some vocab homework, maybe some open answer questions that they have to answer. They get out their work, you get out your work, and you both set a goal for the time. Like you say, okay, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to work on my work emails, and I'm going to put together my notes for tomorrow. And then the student says, okay, I'm going to work on my math problem set, and I am going to finish up this short answer writing assignment. You, as the parent, are not there to do the work with them or for them. You are there to provide. You are working, they are working. It's a quiet environment. There's no distractions. You've set a goal for what you're going to do at the time, and you can even set a little timer. When the time is up, you kind of talk to each other. Okay, so I had a goal that in this 45 minutes, I would get all these emails read, I would get all my notes done. You set a goal that you would do 2 types of homework. So what did we get done? And maybe you model for your favorite student, you know what? I thought these emails were going to take me 45 minutes, but geez Louise, I have to put together an Excel spreadsheet, and that's going to take me another 20. So I actually need a little bit more time. How about you? So now your favorite student sees, well, okay, I don't have to have like this perfect like alignment of time. I'm learning how to budget my time. And you're also creating an environment where you're modeling good executive function skills, and you're also reflecting on the expectation versus the reality. So taking a little bit of structure from the school day, we're going to sit down in an area to work. We're going to have our assignment that we're going to work on. That is going to get you through executive function skills like task initiation, because the kid's going to pick what they're going to do and then start the task. That's going to get you things like organization, planning, materials management. So that's one thing that you can really do at home to help that, executive dysfunction mania, which I would like on a t-shirt, because I love that phrasing. My God, thank you for asking that. Okay, so Pamela asks, how can students learn to motivate themselves to do things they don't want to do, like a boring assignment or cleaning their room? So motivation it's one of my favorite things to learn about, like what motivates human beings, because motivation is something that comes from within us. And I just want to pause and say, I saw somebody raise their hand. This isn't going to be a thing where we're going to like talk to each other. The way we have this set up is to have all of our questions written so that we can see them and make sure that we're going through them. So if you have a great question, whoever it was that just raised their hand, please put it in our Q&A box, because we will get to it. So, okay, motivation is something that comes from within us. And we often think, okay, well, if I say the right motivating words or I give the right pep talk, that thing is going to happen. That really isn't how it works. It has to come from inside. And so one of the things that we can start to do to help our favorite students and learners reflect upon their beliefs and what's motivating them is to ask them, okay, so yeah, this assignment is boring. This task is really boring. So if you don't do it, what are the consequences of it? Are you okay with those consequences? Now, we got to be prepared for the fact that you might say to your favorite student, well, hey, if you don't do this, this English assignment, are you okay with failing that? Oh, yeah, I'm totally okay with that. We as adults are not going to be okay with that. But that can actually be a doorway into a deeper conversation. Why are you okay with that? How do you view this assignment or this class or this task as being inessential? Who is going to do it for you? That type of thing. So sometimes when I talk to students, especially like because I'm not somebody that can tell you how to get your kid to clean your room. The story that I always tell is when that Marie Kondo book came out, I bought it and lost it in a mess. Like I am not that lady, but I am the lady that can help with academic things. So understanding what the student's motivation is for their academic tasks can be so powerful, or why they don't have any motivation for them. Or like sometimes students will think like, well, that homework, it's only like I looked at the grades and that's only 10% of the grade. So if I'll get 90 on the rest of it and then I'll still have an A. But they may not be considering that that 10% on those homeworks, those boring tasks, is actually how you study for all the quizzes. I've had this happen so many times in sessions where students will tell me, well, my teacher says the homeworks are optional, and so I'm not going to do them. And then it turns out that those homeworks that were optional, all of the questions on the tests are coming from those homeworks. So it's kind of like tapping into the student's logic, trying to understand it, and then trying to have a conversation with them about the reality of the task and not their perception of it, which can be very hard. It's not like you say to them, well, hey, so this is an example. I've been working with a student for about 4 years now, and this thing with like optional homework has been a real sticking point with her, where it's like, okay, listen, I get it that it's not graded, but your teacher wrote you an email that you have shared with me that says all of these homeworks are how the tests are set up. And it's not something that at first is based in reality. It's based on the kid's belief. Well, I do really good on tests, so I'm probably going to get A's on these, and then the homeworks will cancel out. So sometimes it's a slower process. Sometimes it's a process of the kid learning, oh my goodness, that plan didn't work. That plan didn't work for the first quiz. It didn't work for the second quiz. And continuing to ask questions to get that reflection. That's something that has really worked for me. And it's not an add water and stir kind of solution. It might take a while, but getting that good reflection to come from the kid about their motivation can be a real help with that. Okay, how do you motivate kids to actually record homework and tests in the planner in class? That's our next question on the list. Okay, I gotta be real with you right now. I'm a lady who has two different planners plus an online planner, and this is something that it maddens us as adults, but it's something that we really have to understand why there is like planner reluctance. When I'm sharing this stuff about planners, I want you to know too, I know a lot about this topic. I recently wrote an article on this topic in an academic magazine with all the big sources in it and everything. So here's the reality of planners. Planners are very rarely a personal item for students, and that deeply shatters their motivation to use them. So I want you to think about how many times as adults are looking in student planners. In my experience as a teacher, I was in a school district at one point in my career where every kid had a planner and we had to look in the planners. And I would notice these kids aren't writing anything down. Well, all day, these are ninth graders. All day long, they have 8 different teachers looking in their planner. I want you to think about this. If you had 8 different people, 8 different bosses, plus your parents looking in your email account, looking in your planner, like, would you be comfortable with that? One of the things that happens with planners is they become depersonalized to students. So students realize the only thing that this book is a place where all my teachers and all of the adults in my life look in it and then tell me what I've done wrong. It would be like if somebody was constantly looking in your email and telling you what you did wrong in your email. I mean, I know when I email sometimes my coworkers, I'm telling a little joke here and there with them. Would everybody find that joke funny? No, but that coworker and I do, you know. But if somebody looked in that and didn't like it, how would they judge me? Would they think I wasn't serious at my job? So I really want you to think about this when we think about planners, because we have to make sure that kids realize that these are their places to write things. That's very hard for us The other thing I'm going to share is, and this is also kind of hard to hear, even if they do write things in the planners, the only evidence you have is that they wrote something down. You don't have evidence that they understood it. You don't have evidence that they did the work. So the thing that we can do is we can talk to them about how they can work for their own system. And we can model this for them. We can show them the systems that work for us. We can talk to them about how these are private things that we use to keep ourselves organized. If we can have students understand the benefits of these tools, they will use them. And it doesn't have to be a paper planner. I have a student on my roster that when we started working together, there were lots of planner battles in the family. The student decided that they wanted to try something else. And this is a teenager that I'm talking about. I always share like printables with my students. So I shared like a little printable weekly calendar. We have some of these printables through Educational Connections that you can use and print out. And she would keep it on a little clipboard. And I was told this by her mom in an email that after she and I made a planner plan, she came out into the living room and told her mother, and this is my private document for me to write down my work. Like, whoa, okay. First of all, she's taken ownership over it, and she was willing to try it for a week. So my advice is if you have a kid who's reluctant to use a planner, use something that is very disposable to start. Get a good printable, like a weekly planner, like a little printable monthly planner. And the goal is use it for a week. See how it hits you. See if this is something that you want to keep doing. Tell me what the utility of it is. One thing that we can do as adults who care about our kids is not to tell them how to use it, but to discuss the utility of it with them. And that's like skills training. So we're not saying, oh, well, you need to use different colors for different homeworks, or you need to write down all of the details. Instead, you might ask really good questions to tap into their motivation, like, okay, so you use that planner for a week just for your math homework. Did you notice any like positive benefits of doing that? And then have the kid share that with you. The other reason I really like a printable is because if you lose it, no big deal. If it rips, print out another one. If you don't do it right, get another one. If it doesn't work one week, try again. Sometimes, too, the planner in and of itself becomes incredibly difficult, especially if you have a kid with ADHD, because if there is any break in it, like if I didn't write in it for 4 days and now it's not perfect, they can feel a lot of like guilt or like they've done something wrong. So I always think it's good to start small, to realize that it has to be personal, to realize that the kid has to see a benefit. And we can do that by asking really good questions to get them to reflect. Okay. So we have another question. My 14-year-old isn't motivated to do their assignments in class. This one, so Kayla, this question right here, I have like a lot of like follow-ups on this, but here's what I'm gonna say. This is something where I would ask the student to tell me why. Because as a classroom teacher, I have had there's so many reasons why kids are not into working in class. You might have a situation where your favorite learner needs to have quiet and the room is too loud, or your favorite learner doesn't want to like collaborate with different people, wants to work on their own, and the only way that they can do that is to work outside of class. So this is one where I would ask some follow-up questions. Okay, tell me, like, why isn't working in class your favorite? Because I mean, it sounds like, your teachers are giving you like 20 minutes per class. And, if you could work on this a little bit, you'd have less homework at night. I would get to the root of that. Why is there a reluctance there? Because I would be willing to bet it's some reason that doesn't have anything to do with like the kids like interest in a subject or anything. It's something outside of that. It's like a preference thing. I've had kids before where they're just like I can't concentrate. I'm thinking of a particular student on my roster who has an exceptionality, is on the spectrum. working in an environment with so many different outside stimuli is so distracting. And so classwork is not something that this particular student can ever really focus on. And they find that when they work outside of class, they can get a lot done. So I think that by asking really good questions, you can get to, the root of that. Okay, so Darcy asks, my son can no longer go to school in person, so he will be homeschooled for the next semester. He has always had low motivation to do schoolwork at home, um, but we don't have any choice at the moment. So how do I motivate him to do his work daily now? So I think this, this type of thing going to like homes like doing any school at home requires a lot of motivation on the student's part because if there's no deadlines there are deadlines with homeschool curriculum and the like. So but it's less than like that, you're in the classroom, you have like different teachers that are reminding you of things. I would actually look at the homeschooling curriculum. Like a lot of programs will have synchronous classes where students are like just like we're on a Zoom right now. I think that that can be a great way to have some tap into like that love of school, that love of learning, because you have those types of classes. This is one where I have some follow-ups. I would say anytime things are synchronous, make sure that that particular student is in those classes. I think that sometimes too, I've seen this a lot with students who go from a physical school environment to like an online school environment or a hybrid school environment. With some particular students, these transitions can be really freeing for them. It's wonderful that we can have different types of school environments that can reach all of our learners. So I think though that if you notice that your son was more motivated, like when he was in class in school, take advantage of any like synchronous opportunities, and that could be really helpful. Okay, so I'm looking through here. Okay, so I see a couple that are like kind of going together. A ninth grade son who doesn't think he's going to be able to raise his grades, and then right under that, one of my problems is trying to motivate my son to complete an assignment that he sees as busy work or useless. Mom, I'm never going to use this, and sometimes this sounds like me. Sometimes I agree with him. So what can I do? I see this. So I'm going to talk about the raising the grades and also the not motivated to do the work because sometimes when I am working with students in sessions, there's a little voice in my head where I see their work. I'm like, this kid's never going to use this. You know what I mean? And I also see this as something that can really raise grades if you do the work, and you get everything done. So, one of the things that I do with students is I talk to them about the difference between school skills and life skills. So this is like been my joke now for like 20 years as an educator. I will say to kids, like a vocabulary list. Okay, a vocabulary list is definitely a school skill. It's not a life skill. When you are like a banking vice president someday, nobody's gonna like be like, hey, I need that vocab on my desk by 6 p.m. Like kids are smart. They know that some of this stuff is like, I'm never going to use this when I get my degree in geology or when I go to medical school or like whatever it is. Nobody's ever going to like make me talk about Wuthering Heights at a job interview. But we have to also talk about the school skills that are helping us learn and get to those goals. One of the things that I do with students is I talk to them about how some of their work is not going to take them as long as they think it is. So one of the things that I do is in my sessions, we identify one of these assignments, and maybe for the attendee who has her son who's not like confident and able to like raise his grades, you talk to them about, okay, can you pick an assignment that you have to do right now that you could get done in 20 minutes? Get it out. Let's look at it together. Okay, cool. So, like maybe they're showing me a little math problem set or some vocab words. Let's now set a little timer for 20 minutes. We're not going to talk. You're just going to work this little short amount of time. And then after that, we're going to reflect on what you did. And we're also going to reflect on how the quality of your work and how you think this is going to fit into like your larger goals for learning. This can be really helpful because you're not saying to a kid, well, this is the most important thing to do. And, this is, you have to do everything perfect to raise your grades. You're helping kids with time management and with task initiation, which are two huge executive function skills. And you're saying to the kid, look, this is not your favorite thing to do. This wasn't my favorite thing to do. But if we use a little bit of time wisely, we can get this done. And we can also make good plans for the future. This can really help a kid's confidence, like in our question about the ninth grader who's not confident. So maybe if you try this with your son, the kid sees, well, geez, Louise, I can get a lot done in 20 minutes. And then is able to turn that work in, maybe gets a grade that's a little bit higher. And now that is going to start to raise that confidence. It's also great to then talk about the process with the kid the next day. So, hey, last time you did that math work in 20 minutes. You just told me you got a 92% on that. Could that be something we do together? And you can even use that with that body doubling strategy that I talked about earlier. Maybe you set a goal of, okay, I got to do all these stupid bills. This is a task I do not want to do, but I'm going to try to do this in 20 minutes and do a really good job. And then you meet together and you talk about it. So you're also showing your kid, look, there's stuff I don't want to do. There's stuff that I kind of think is like, not how I want to spend my time, but I'm going to put forth a good effort and then I'm going to reflect on it so I can do better in the future. And I think that I like that these questions are together because I really felt like they're in conversation. So I hope that really helps. Okay. So we have a question about the Pomodoro method. A student that says the timer doesn't work when it's ringing. They need a few more minutes. Okay, so here's the thing about the Pomodoro method. So the Pomodoro method, some folks here might be familiar with this. This might be new for others. The Pomodoro method is the brainchild of a man named Francesco Cirillo. When he was a university student, he hated his sociology class and could not pay attention to his textbook. He grabs his kitchen timer, sets it for 2 minutes, and makes himself pay attention. Lo and behold, when the timer goes off, he's like, well, geez, Louise, I read this thing for 2 minutes that I hated, and it wasn't that bad. And for the rest of his life, this gentleman has studied the human attention span, productivity. You can look him up. He has a research center. He works with all these big Fortune 500 companies. But the Pomodoro method is something that is often misused. So in that question, there's some things, well, I need more time. This to me is a little bit of the Pomodoro method, but not being used like the way that it should be. The Pomodoro method isn't about relegating you to a set amount of time. It's not like, well, there's only 25 minutes that you have now to do this vocab work. It has to be 25 minutes. It's about figuring out how long things take you. So it is a tool where you say like for example, I use it to I hate to clean, and whenever I have to clean my kitchen, I set a timer and I do it. And sometimes it takes me 25 minutes. Sometimes it takes me way longer, if I've if I've baked or something. But it allows me to see around how much time it's going to take me. So if you're noticing that your favorite student is using the Pomodoro method and needs more time, that's actually because they need more time. That's because they are learning that these processes to do really good work takes longer, and that's perfectly fine. Some of us do things really quickly. Some of us need to be more thoughtful. If your favorite learner is using a timer, this isn't like the tortoise and the hare where you're trying to cross the finish line, but it is like the tortoise and the hare where it's like, okay, slow and steady wins the race. I would really encourage you to have good conversations with your favorite learner about what they're getting done, like how they feel about their work and that type of thing. Okay, we have one question left, And we're gonna do this one, and then I'm just looking at the time here. We've gone over a little bit, but I can see that folks are still here. So I'm going to do this last one, and then we'll say like a hearty farewell on this cold day. Okay, so Eileen asks, what do you recommend if we are encountering major resistance from our student, now a teenager, who is pushing against anything? How unlike a teenager to push against anything a parent would suggest at using any of these helpful tools and this setup. Even when he used to be willing to do when he was younger, and I felt was effective. Okay, so this is typical teenager mixed with like executive function need, and it is so hard because whether you are a parent, a family member, an educator, you are always going to have that pushback. It can be absolutely maddening. Like, why are you not using this stuff that has worked for you? This is another one where I would get to the root of it. I would ask, okay, so what's changed? So for example, this is reminding me of a student I have on my roster who who was using methods that worked and then literally like made a sharp turn into left field and is not doing it anymore. I was so frustrated by this because we had come so far and now all of a sudden you're not doing anything that's been working and you're over here like with, wishes and spells trying to make like your work happen. And when I started I got outside of my head and I was like, I got to figure out what's motivating this. This student told me that this was quote unquote how it was done. The student was taking advanced classes, and instead of doing the things we'd been doing, reading, taking notes in class, doing reviews together. Now, all of a sudden, the kid wants to watch a YouTube video and get an A on the test. And then they tell me, well, this is how when I was asking people like to do a study group and stuff, this is how they told me they got their A's. All they do is they watch these videos and then they just take the test and they get an A. So now the kid is thinking there's an easier, better way. There's like an add water and stir solution. This student and I went through these types of things. We ended up figuring out that whoever had given them this method, that wasn't working. That was kind of that wasn't based on reality. I would really get to the root of this. Why is this particular kid doing this thing now? Why has there been this shift? And it may be because they think that there's an easier, better way. And it may take a while for them to realize, no, this isn't working. I have to go back to what I used to do because that works. And that happens with all of us. You know what I mean? I think like all of us right now are living in a world where we open up our email and we have a large language model like ChatGPT telling us, oh, I can write that for you. I can do that for you right now. Well, you might think, well, why should I do anything the way I used to? I can do it this easier way. We're as susceptible to this as kids are. So I would get to the root of that. So we went a little bit over, and I think it was because all of the questions were so amazing. If you have any additional questions, one of the things that I would really recommend is booking a little bit of time with one of our program managers. Maybe some of the things that I've talked about today, you want to work with an executive function coach because that's what I am. That's what I do every single day of the week with students. So you can contact us, book that free call, and please look out for more of these. If you have any college age students in your life right now, we have some webinars coming up about college students. Pop over to our website, sign up for them. They're going to be chock full of great information. So thank you all for everything, and I hope to see you again at another one of our events.